Hello, and welcome to Beyond Biotech, the weekly podcast from Labiotech. I'm Dylan Kassane, and this is episode 164 for the podcast. How do you do science? How do you build biotechs? And how can you drive innovation in a country that's almost always under threat? These are questions that this week's guest, Gill, CEO of AION Labs in Israel, is perfectly positioned to answer. AION Labs has an innovative company creation process that empowers scientists and startups to tackle high-impact pharma challenges with AI, backed by top-tier data, funding, and expertise from global pharma partners. In the middle of a transformative decade for AI-driven drug discovery, and with Israel poised to play an increasingly significant role, Maddie explains how venture studios are helping to foster groundbreaking solutions for global health challenges. I hope you enjoy my discussion with Maddie Gill. Maddie, welcome to the Beyond Biotech podcast.
Thank you for having me, Dylan.
Maddie, start by telling me a little bit about your background and how you came to be the CEO of AION Labs.
Thank you. So as you might be able to detect from my accent, I wasn't born in Israel. I was born in the United States. We moved to Israel as a family, and I've been living here for a few decades. I have a unique background in that the non-unique part is that I'm a lawyer with an MBA. I think that's about as typical as you can get in a corporate environment. But I spent a little over 10 years in the public sector, in public service, in areas that had nothing to do with pharma and health tech, and then moved over to the industry. And that's where I choose to go into the health tech industry, into the pharma industry and biotech industry. And I spent a little over 10 years at Teva Pharmaceuticals, which is Israel's biggest company, in their headquarters here in various management positions, and was part of a team at Teva that put together a new model and concept for how big pharma companies can work together with startups at the intersection of technology and biology to be able to create new technologies for the biotech industry, bringing in artificial intelligence and computational technologies. And that's when we decided to establish AION Labs. And I fell in love with the concept and the partners and the people so much, I decided to throw my hat in the ring, content to be the CEO. And thankfully for me, hopefully the partners would agree with this, I was selected and established AION Labs and left Teva and have been running this for the last 4 years.
That's how you got to where you are. But tell me how you jumped from being this lawyer with an MBA into biotech and into drug discovery. What took you into the industry in the first place?
So what took me into the health tech or pharma industry in the first place was two things. Number one is my interest in leaving the public sector to gain top skills and capabilities in management after I finished my law degree. And actually in the public sector, I was in very senior roles with a seat at some of the most sensitive and interesting tables in the world here in Israel, in the public sector world here in Israel, but felt on a personal level that I didn't have all the skill set to have an impact and influence the way that I would like to. So I knew that I needed to gain those skills in a real world experience. And I thought that industry would be the best place for me to learn how to manage, set strategy, and establish things. And so that's what took me over into the industry. And the reason why I chose pharma and the health industry is two reasons. One is I always want to work for something that's mission driven, where I feel that there's a strong sense of a mission behind what I am serving, whether it's in the public sector or if it's an industry, it has to be a cause that I really believe in. And as much as I am a capitalist, money is not the primary driver for me. It has to be success in a private sector, but in an industry and a mission that I could believe in. And secondly, is Teva is Israel's largest company, where you can really gain global skills in, and that's what attracted me to the industry and specifically to Teva.
You're also a member of the 8400 Health Network. What drew you to them, and how does that connect with the work that you're doing at AION Labs?
So 8400 is a unique model of how to, at a national level, propel the health tech industry in Israel. It was established about 7 years ago out of a place uh, that on a national level, we understood that we have a market failure, meaning that there's a lot of potential in Israel to build up a strong biotech and health tech ecosystem. Yet that potential had not been realized. And it could become, if we do the right things, a national growth engine for the country at an economic base and a policy base, and also be able to bring out the best of what we do for the good of the world and humanity. And so this was a network that when I was still at Teva, we were the first sponsor of the network at a corporate level. And I was a strong supporter of its establishment and really a partner in their early stages. And then when I left Teva and was no longer writing the checks on the corporate sponsorship side, I applied and was accepted to be a member of the network. And it was a 6-month fellowship program, which ended with a week at Harvard Business School in Boston, in Cambridge, where we really gained both perspective of what we could be if we do the right things at a national level, and then with some elements of how to get there. And how that ties into AION Labs is one of the things that was very evident from the beginning, is that Israel has the opportunity to be a leader in the future of the pharma industry by bringing in cutting-edge AI and computational technologies with biology. And that's something Israel is uniquely adapted to do because we have great biotech research and we have great AI capabilities and technology capabilities. And in Israel, we also have the capability to work across both sectors. And we've done that pretty much in every industry. And we have the capabilities to do that in biotech, but we needed different ways of venture formation to be able to do it successfully. And that's where AION Labs came in. And that became obvious from our deliberations in the 8400 program. And as we launched AION Labs, the 8400 network and establishment and infrastructure was very helpful and continues to be very helpful in our journey.
I'm going to get to AION Labs in just a second, but I want to learn a little bit more about biotech in Israel and the pharma industry there.
Sure.
Israel's often called the startup nation. What do you see as the strengths of the industry there, and what really sets it apart from the other hubs in Boston, in Cambridge, places where you really hear about innovation all of the time?
So first of all, Dylan, it's very interesting that we are known as a startup nation, but if you actually think about the pharma industry, that's not something that Israel has been known for, hence the market failure that I mentioned before, is that Israel is a leader in AI and cutting-edge high-tech technologies across many different sectors, from cyber, defense tech, auto tech, and various other sectors that we've been able to innovate and bring new technologies to the world. In pharma, we really only have Teva as a big success story up until now, which is a huge success story at a national level because they were able to not only build a company that's a global leader in its space, but also to bring drugs that were invented at Israeli academic institutes, like Copaxone, which was invented at the Weizmann Institute, and then commercialized by Teva and taken to the world, alongside other drugs that were developed at academic research institutes, but then commercialized by non-Israeli companies. And therefore, the rest of the development was done outside. What we hadn't done in Israel is actually build a whole generation of startups that were able to bring products to the market in the biotech space. So therefore, and just to give you an anecdote, when I was still at Teva, there was a CEO who came in from outside of Teva and from outside of Israel, but with a lot of experience working in Israel at his previous companies of Novo Nordisk and Lundbeck, which is Kåre Schultz, who came to be the CEO of Teva. And when we talked to him about tapping into the Israeli innovation ecosystem, he said, Mati, I'm a big believer in the startup nation, but not for pharma. You haven't been successful there yet. So you need to prove it to me. And that's what we're doing up until now. I mean, he's no longer the CEO of Teva, but that's really what we started to build first at Teva and then thereafter at AION Labs, and is happening all around us here in Israel.
So tell me how that's changing then. How is it evolving? Because you've talked already about AI and some of these other technologies. How is that impacting the industry and, evolving the startup system?
Sure. So what we've seen over the last 5-7 years is a whole cluster of startups being grown, some with tremendous potential to be great exit stories and growth companies, And that's different from what had happened before that. Now, what are the key drivers behind that? Number one is the future of our industry is going to increasingly place an emphasis on the need for AI and computational technologies in drug discovery and development because we all know that it takes way too long and way too expensive with way too high of a failure rate to bring a new drug to the market. And so that's where new AI and computational technologies can come in to help address that challenge. And so the future of where the industry is headed is where Israel can actually play a role because, again, we're great at AI and technologies, we're great at biological research, and we're great at entrepreneurship to actually build products at the intersection of the two. So we've really, and this is again to give a lot of credit to the Israel Innovation Authority and to the government here that actually put together a strategy about 7 years ago that said, let's start to focus national level investments into that intersection to be a significant hub for the future of the biotech industry in areas where we can be competitive at a global scale, which is at this intersection of tech and bio. And so it's still biotech, but it's biotech putting more of an emphasis on where Israel actually could have a unique competitive advantage, which includes computational technologies into that. And we're seeing great research come out of leading universities like the Weizmann Institute, which is right across the street from AION Labs, but others, Hebrew University, Tel Aviv University, Bar Ilan, the Technion. We're seeing great research coming out of there. And then we're seeing entrepreneurs that previously might have gone to the high-tech industry, but then work with peers with a biological background to actually build products out of that. Because there's nothing that a great tech entrepreneur wants to do more than to build a technology and address a challenge that everyone thinks is impossible to address. And then secondly is to actually build a technology and a product that can actually do some positive things for the world. And that's where health tech offers them those opportunities. So what we've seen again over the last 5-7 years is increased interest from pharma companies to invest in Israel, from leading global pharma companies to invest in Israel, whether by investing in R&D centers or doing partnerships with good Israeli startups and university projects. So we've seen a dramatic increase there. And we've also seen a dramatic increase in quality startups being built over the last 5-7 years, raising additional rounds, growing in valuation, and then starting to get on the trajectory towards bringing good products to market and building growth companies.
That all sounds really positive, but of course, it's always or often a flip side there where there are still challenges to overcome. How are you dealing with the challenges, and really what are they? Are you retaining the talent? Have you got enough funding? Or are there regulatory hurdles that are just difficult to overcome when you're not in the US and you're not in mainland Europe?
So I think we can say that there's three significant challenges that we're still working to address. Number one is funding. The biotech funding environment globally is not as good as it was 3-5 years ago. If you go to Boston, you go to other areas, you're seeing a dramatic decrease in the funding environment for startups and for innovation. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a reality we have to deal with. And of course, if that's happening in Boston, then it's twofold in Israel, or maybe even threefold in Israel, as a hub that's not yet established with a positive reputation for the biotech industry. But we're on the way. Secondly, is the talent, which you addressed, Dylan. And I think what we are lacking here is not talent, but experienced talent. Those that have actually built biotech companies, had an exit or two, and then gone on to be serial entrepreneurs, or were part of a success story, and then in a forward integration manner are building their own company after being a management team member in the previous success stories. So we're lacking in that experienced talent, that bench of experienced talent of CEOs and top executives in the biotech industry. And in both of those elements, both the funding and the talent, we're working in different manners. Again, with 8400 at a national level, not just ION Labs, to be able to address those challenges. The third, I think, is not necessarily regulatory, because that's not really a barrier that I believe is something that's preventing Israeli companies' progress. It's more about the global insight into what the real global market needs are. So at AION Labs, we're addressing that by bringing in top pharma companies to help guide our startups and our ideation processes in what are the real unmet needs of the industry. But at a more national level, by bringing in the customer insight, by bringing in, and again, 8400 did a great project over the last year for the first time of building up a joint U.S.-Israeli program so that we're putting leaders from Boston that want to help the Israeli ecosystem together with the leaders and the emerging leaders of the Israeli health tech ecosystem to build a bridge that will help to address that gap in what the customer and the market insights are so that we're able to build the right startups with the right level of funding, with the right talent and the right spaces from the beginning. And that's something we're trying to address, all three of those challenges.
I guess another challenge that comes to mind when we're talking about Israel is geopolitically, there are just a lot of ongoing threats, including some recent incidents. You mentioned the Weizmann Institute a couple of times. That was hit in a missile strike from Iran not too long ago. How does that impact the industry? I guess everything from the operations and the talent through to just investor confidence of an institute and a research lab still being there the next day.
Yeah, so I mean, that's correct. It's absolutely a challenge and it's a significant risk that is addressed. But there's also the flip side, Dylan, of, when you see the Weizmann Institute was hit and then the scientists within a month have their labs up and running and continuing to innovate, and then even being able to come out even stronger of that because they're even that much more determined to succeed. And our startups are the same way. I see it as a vote of confidence for any investor that would say, how do we make sure that we're going to be able to mitigate any risk that will come in the startup, those that are known, those that are out of our control, those that are unknown. Any startup goes through the roller coaster ride of risks, some that are being able to be planned in advance and then mitigated, and some that you have no idea where they're going to come from. So what we're being able to prove over the last 2 years is that no matter what you throw at us, we're able to overcome it. And no matter we have that perseverance and that capability to actually continue with our operations and continue to succeed no matter what. And that's something that I think as an investor should see that as saying, you know what, right now maybe the prices in Israel are a little bit lower than they would normally be in a normal market because of these geopolitical risks. Let's actually come in and invest and double down now in Israel because we're going to be able to get in at a lower price than we will once all these geopolitical tensions will be over, and inshallah that'll happen sooner rather than later.
Let's drill down now from Israel, the startup nation, the ecosystem, into your business. For
Sure.
people who haven't heard of AION Labs before and its mission in building this AI-driven company, these biopharma companies, explain to me, what's the mission? What do you do and what makes it special?
So AION Labs is a venture studio. It's the first venture studio in the biotech space in Israel, and one of the first in the world, I think, in the biotech space. And what's really unique about us is that we were able to bring together an amazing group of partners that actually came together and established and are the shareholders of AION Labs to this day. 4 global pharma companies: AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Merck out of Germany, and Teva, together with 2 venture capital firms, Amiti and the Israel Biotech Fund, and with the support of Amazon as our computational and tech partner, and supported by the Israel Innovation Authority. And this group came together to say our mission is to do 2 things. Number one, to bring in technological solutions for the unmet needs of the pharma industry at a global scale, which is why you have multiple pharma companies working together and not just one pharma company tapping into trying to find their next drug. And secondly, is to build great startups as the way to bring in these technologies. And so that's really our mission. And we build startups 2 to 4 every year since our establishment that really go from a prototyping space of trying to address a big ideation. And then if we're able to see them succeed, then to be able to help them raise their next rounds and continue to grow thereafter. To date, we've built 9 startups. 4 have raised additional capital. 5 have yet to do so, or might not do so because the prototype wasn't successful. And just like any venture studio, we're going to be able to help have good graduates that will bring solutions. Already, some of them are already starting to provide scientific value to the industry with successful scientific progress, and thereafter to be able to raise their rounds and continue to grow.
AION Labs, you say it's a venture studio, but as I understand it, there are a couple of main tracks. You've got AION Building and AION Seeding. Can you walk me through, just to start with, the difference between those two
Sure.
parts?
So first of all, we do have 2 tracks in how we build companies, but let's start with the what and then we'll go to the how. When we decide to build a new company, we say it has to address 3 core principles. Number one is that it's addressing a big, validated unmet need. That our industry partners have said this is truly an unmet need where no other company out there is providing this solution. And it's a wide enough and broad enough and big enough unmet need that could be the basis, if addressed, of a new startup. Second is that it's got a great team with a great technology or technological concept. And third is because of our unique access to multiple pharma companies, that we are the right place for it to be built, meaning that we have at least 1 or 2 of our pharma companies that are committed to working with a startup from day one, or even actually before we establish the startup, and selecting the right team and the right technological concept, and then doing early POCs with a startup from its inception and guiding them through their initial processes. So those are our 3 core principles. Again, big unmet need, great team and technology, and we're the right place to help them grow. And then we build them through 2 different tracks, where really the only difference is, do we start with the unmet need or do we start with the technology? And in the starting with the unmet need, we come with an open unmet need. We offer it up to any entrepreneur and any scientist and any startup even that's at an early stage that thinks that they can address that unmet need, like let's say de novo design of therapeutic antibodies, which has still not been proven. But when we launched it 4 years ago, it was truly an unmet need that nobody was really successfully working on at that stage. And we offered that to the world. And the winner of that was a company called that's now called Denovi, based out of a lab from Embel from Germany. The entrepreneur came from Heidelberg, Germany, established the company here in Israel. He's built a great team of 6, 7 scientists that work alongside him, and they're already making significant progress with an additional raise that they've done. In our AION seeding track, we do the opposite. We say, okay, if we have all this partnership input and willingness to work with new technologies that address unmet needs that we thought of, why don't we open ourselves up in a very open innovation model to actually work with startups and help build startups that address challenges we didn't think of? So therefore saying that if you have a great technology coming out of a lab, again, let's just use the Weizmann Institute, for example. If you have a great technology that's coming out of the Weizmann Institute or coming from any university or from a garage in a high-tech zone in Tel Aviv that addresses a big industry opportunity and unmet need that we didn't think of, we'll then take it to the process with our pharma companies to see if it's the right team, the right technology, in the right space that they're willing to commit to. So we've made to date 6 investments in the building track, 3 in the seeding track, and that's the way we've been able to build startups to date, and continuously learning from what works, what doesn't work well enough, and then evolving our model to be able to adapt to those lessons learned that we're collecting in the way.
So why are the top pharma companies partnering with you then? What's the value that they're getting from your model that they're not getting from other startup studios?
So I'm not sure. I don't want to talk about what they're getting from other startup studios or other processes. Of course, each pharma company has its own open innovation processes where they tap into great technologies and they do partnerships. We're very aware of that. They're very transparent about that. We're not we don't have exclusivity. What I believe that they get out of working with AION Labs and in establishing and being the owners of AION Labs is a few things. Number one, they get to work with each other. And that type of model where pharma companies are working with each other in a for-profit venture and not in an industry association where you talk about things that are perhaps less sensitive at at a commercial scale. Of course, we do this all under very strict antitrust rules. That's where my background as being a lawyer comes into this, and we're very, very strict on that because we do understand and actually agree with the merit behind those antitrust guidelines. But they get to work with each other, number one. Number two is they get to tap into great Israeli science and technology, and they see all the deal flow coming out of Israel through that. And I believe that they agree with that there is value coming out of Israel in the science and technology space for the biotech industry, or else they wouldn't continue to be here. And third is they get to actually work on topics and industry-wide efforts together that no pharma company would develop in-house on their own. So therefore, the novel design of therapeutic antibodies, to go back to that example, is wide enough so that each pharma company can then work on their own pipeline projects with them, and also to be able to tap into the technology for their own pipeline assets, each one on their own, and then to be able to help them develop this technology to be truly the best in class versus competitors out there.
You've mentioned a couple of companies along the way there, but maybe you can share a success story that's come out of AION Labs so far. Is Denovi the one that stands out?
So for me, yes, Denovi was our first company that we established, and really something we're very proud of here. And they came out of EMBL. We licensed the technology and a great process with the EMBL team over there with the emblem, the TTO, that could really teach universities throughout the world how to do tech transfer successfully and able to bring great science into building great products and technology for the world. So we licensed the technology from there. The scientist who was one of the co-inventors of the technology that we licensed decided to leave EMBL and become the CEO and founder of the company, Kashif Sadiq. And we helped him to build up a great R&D team based out of with computational biologists and drug discovery experts that's based here in Israel, working out of AION Labs. And they've been able to raise another $3 million in seed funding, in addition to the $1 million that we provided them in inception. And they're already working with multiple pharma companies, both our partners, including external non-AION Labs partners, on projects, not just pilots. They've already done some pilots successfully, both externally and independently, as well as with pharma partners, and actually have a couple commercial agreements lined up within 2 years of establishment.
One of the things that really intrigued me when I first heard about what you're doing at AION Labs is the idea that it's not just a metaphorical, we're bringing people together. It's actually a physical meeting on a day in a workshop. Can you tell me a little bit about this workshop? I've seen some media reports, I've seen some great TV, but how does it actually work to have representatives from pharma companies all come into the same room and just start talking about the problems that they're looking to solve? How does the workshop work?
Yeah, so the workshop is actually part of our building process for company creation. And we do that both in the building track as well as in the seeding track. Really what happens is in our building track, what we do is we select big topics in our ideation processes led by our VP of Ideation, Dr. Sharon Credo-Russo from our team. She works with each pharma company on their own, and then together, collectively, to select big topics that we want to tackle on an annual basis. And each one of those topics has to then pass our investment committee, our scientific investment committee, which is made up of members of all our partner organizations at a senior R&D level. They all sit together and select the topics together. And then they appoint subject matter experts from within their R&D organizations to work in the company creation processes with AION Labs, to select the right team and technology, and to really do that evaluation. So when we do that, then we put together a workshop to be able to select the best potential talented people and scientist founders to address that challenge. And they spend a week basically working in coaching sessions and then evaluation sessions and mentoring sessions in a very structured manner. This is a methodology that we adapted from biotechs, a research institute from Germany, which was our strategic partner in the building of AION Labs. And really their first success story in being able to take their model from Germany and use it to a venture studio and venture formation model outside of Germany and outside of Heidelberg. And they helped us to establish AION Labs. And throughout that week-long workshop, our partners get insight into the various scientist founders and their ideas. They provide them feedback, and ultimately we select one team to tackle that challenge and to build a new startup that will address it, and then have up to 2 years to prototype their technology and see if it actually can reach a point of validation or not. And that's the first 2 years that we do in the building track. In the seeding track, we do the same and have the same input from the partners that work collectively, but the process works in reverse. So we bring them a technology. They then pitch our pharma partners. If they see it's of interest, they appoint subject matter experts to then work with the startup from its inception.
You mentioned these big topics that you put in front of the companies and you talk about and try and identify. Can you give me an example of what's a big topic, or what was a recent big topic?
So a recent big topic was target combination, which is a huge opportunity for the industry. It's a very tough challenge. We ran a workshop on that in July, and the feedback both from our partners as well as from the scientist founders that spent the week with us here was that this was an incredibly difficult challenge to be able to tackle. But with big challenges come huge opportunities. So they spent the week here in coaching sessions, working with our scientific team from AION Labs, Yair, Benita, and Sharon that I mentioned, really to fine-tune their central hypothesis and how to address these challenges. And at some point, we will establish a new startup that will address this challenge and be able to do target discovery for combination targets, in that essence.
Matty, let's think a little bit about the future. One of the things that seems to be the case for AION Labs is that in a way it de-risks a little bit of the innovation, because you have pharma partners who are interested, that there are opportunities there and that they're interested in these sorts of opportunities. If we're thinking about this broader biopharma landscape moving forward, what's the role of venture studios like AION Labs in actually de-risking these investments and de-risking a little bit the startups that, in any other circumstance might never get out of some fundamental research?
So I believe the role here is that investors will see that a venture studio gives the startup more of a chance of success because they're actually able to reach proof of concept with validation that's being backed up by their future customers in a much more fast, cheaper, more efficient, and much more validated manner in that essence. So therefore, a startup that can start from scratch, like De Novi, with $4 million to date, can actually reach a point where they validated their technology of de novo design of therapeutic antibodies under 2 years. And other companies that have tried to address that challenge in this space have ultimately failed and went to the optimization pathway of antibodies. And there are a couple other companies working in this space, but with much larger budgets, much larger investments. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think investors like to reach a point where they're able to invest in a technology and get a larger part of the pie for a smaller amount of money, but with the same level of success. And if you're able to actually do that by doing this company creation in a collaborative manner, bringing in the market and customer insights from day one, it gives the startups a stronger level of success. In any case, a startup success we know is about 5%, right? 5% of startups actually succeed. So hopefully we'll be able to beat that significantly. We're not going to reach 100%, but we'll be able to beat that significantly.
Do you think there's scope then for this collaborative model to expand outside of Israel, outside of AION Labs?
So I believe yes. We're at AION Labs, we're not actively looking to franchise or branch out anywhere. But I think anywhere that you could find, and there are other models like Portal in the US, which has a philosophy of they tap and they build their incubators in spaces and areas, geographical areas, where they're what they call over-scienced and underfunded. So basically, where you find a place like Israel, which was overscienced and underfunded, that you have great talent with great capabilities, but investors have not yet tapped into, and the global pharma market is not yet tapped into. That's where I think venture studios like ours can have a unique role. The government support that was provided and is provided by the Israel Innovation Authority was very important to establishing AION Labs, and I think would be very important to helping to jumpstart any such program outside of Israel. And there's various incentives programs throughout the world. So Israel's not unique in that element. And I think that's where you can find the capability for those successes. Where you will not need a venture studio like ours is probably Boston or the Silicon Valley, because those are well established ecosystems with great venture studio platforms, whether it be Atlas or Third Rock or any other, or Curie Bio, et cetera, et cetera. There you have great venture formation platforms that already exist with well established infrastructure and great teams. Where you would want to have such an infrastructure built is in areas where there's potential but have not been tapped into, like we said in the beginning of our conversation, Dylan, where there's a market failure. And a market failure doesn't mean that it's going to fail. It means that there's potential that hasn't yet been realized. And that's what was identified in Israel. And I think that could be identified in other areas outside of Israel.
Marty, if you could make a bold prediction now about this intersection of AI, of biotech, of pharma, and the innovation ecosystem in Israel, tell me, what's that prediction?
So I think let's talk about the industry and then talk about where Israel sits in. So the intersection of tech and bio is not really its own industry. It's basically biotech that's increasingly using new technologies and new tools in order to bring drugs to the market. So what we will see over the next 5 to 10 years, and perhaps even faster than that, are drugs that were designed using AI and computational technologies, de novo, that will be approved by the FDA and EMA and then brought and enabled patients to be able to use. Secondly, is you will have tools that are developed to be able to help the industry conduct those processes at a much faster pace and at a much more efficient pace, and you'll have exits of those tools being sold to either global pharma companies or maybe even to global tech companies that want to provide these services at scale to the pharma industry. And third is you're going to see increased willingness of the regulatory authorities to be able to do that. And in all three parameters, we're already seeing progress being made. So there's over 60 clinical programs of drug candidates in clinical stages that were designed by AI. None have yet to be approved by the FDA, but it's only a question of when, it's not a question of if. And we're starting to see great technologies that don't design and develop their own drugs and their own pipelines, like great companies, including ones coming out of Israel, that are developing these technologies. Let's take Phase V for an example, as a great Israeli company that's developed technologies that can help pharma companies succeed in their clinical trial process to be able to lower the attrition rate of 90% to something much less using AI and machine learning capabilities. And they've recently raised a $50 million round led by Excel and then Insight Partners. So some of the best tech investors in the world that are helping them in their progress. And third is, again, we're seeing that the FDA, even with all their budget cuts and all their team cuts, they're not touching their AI section. They're not downsizing there. What they're doing is actually the opposite. They're coming to the industry and saying, bring us solutions that are AI based so that we can actually help make drugs that are more affordable and do this process in a much more efficient and timely manner.
Finally, Marty, if we can do something very practical, if you have someone who's an entrepreneur or they're a founder scientist, they want to be working in this AI, biotech, biopharma space in Israel, what should they be doing? Who should they be meeting? Where should they be going? What should they be reading? What's their advice? What's your advice to them?
Sure. So number one, they can reach out to me directly. I'm very accessible. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. They can reach out to me on Twitter. And they can reach out to me on email. It's Mati at AIONLabs.com. It couldn't be easier. And we're very accessible and we answer everyone. Secondly, is if they come from either the AI or the biotech space, they should be talking with domain experts in the other space. So especially if they come as great tech entrepreneurs, they should be coming to meet with biotech experts and working with partners, whether they be on the founding team or as their investors and established design partners like we offer in AION Labs, to be able to actually help them develop their technology and select the right space to work in. So that's really the best advice I can give them. If they come from a tech background, developing a product in the biotech space is not like engineering a new product in the high-tech space, because biology works differently than mathematical products or mathematical and computational-based products outside of the biological space. So that's where the domain expertise across both the industries is really of importance. But what's new over the last 5-10 years is that the biotech experts and the biology domain experts understand the potential and the importance of bringing in the domain expertise of AI and technology experts into their space. So really, it's each one being able to work with the other is what will be successful.
Mati, it's been great. Thanks for joining us today on Beyond Biotech.
Thank you, Dylan, for having me.
That's it for this episode. Don't forget to check out all the latest news and analysis at Labiotech.eu. I hope wherever you are in the world, you have a great week ahead. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll join us again next time for another Beyond Biotech.